there was this shocking event that happened in June, which was the publication of Final Cut Pro 10, or X. We'd been looking forward to it. I had been at Cupertino in February, where it had been dangled in front of us, and some of its strong points, the 64-bit processing, had been laid out. It was a kind of a beta version, and then immediately after seeing that, I got plunged into the maelstrom of actually making a film, where you're working 14-hour days and you don't have time to really surface it all. And then suddenly it was June and Final Cut Pro got published. And I quickly looked at it and said, I can't use this. If I wanted to use this on the film that I'm working on, I can't use it. So I began to wonder, what is the pro part of it? Because it didn't have XML. I depend absolutely, as you can kind of tell, on all of this metadata being, having a home and winding up in the right bucket. But it didn't have XML. It didn't have shared area network support, so we couldn't have multiple editors. And as you saw, I have 5 workstations, and everyone has to be able to open up the project which is on the RAID. So I got confused by those 2 things, which were one of a number of things that made me and a lot of people wonder what's happening. And so I wrote a letter to Apple, asking them that, basically saying what's happening, because along with publishing Final Cut 10, they end-of-lifed what I was working on, meaning it was still there on my machine. I could still use it, but you couldn't buy it anymore. So if somebody wanted to add some more seats, or the school wanted to add some more stations with Final Cut, officially, they couldn't do it. And so it made me and everyone wonder, what's the thinking behind this? So there was a period in the Cold War when there was something called criminology, which was looking at who was on the podium during the parade to try to figure out what were they doing back in there. And so, Apple, which is a very closed, secretive company anyway, did this thing that didn't seem to make any sense. And I still don't know what the real reason for this is. I think it had something to do with the schedule, that it had been 2 years since they last published anything on Final Cut, and there had been this decision made to completely revamp the software and make it worthy of building a foundation worthy of sustaining development over the next 10 years. The Final Cut that we've been working with and love has its faults, and some of those faults are simply the result of having been the base code of it having been written in the late 1990s. They, in a sense, they couldn't wait any longer. They had to publish it even though it wasn't ready. But simultaneously, killing the thing that was workable was a confusing thing. Anyway, we started a dialogue, and I sent them a list of, here's my list. I'm sure everyone else is sending you this, but my list was XML. Please get this working, because this allows, there's that thing of when your kid's at school and the report card comes and it says, does not play well with other people. And that was kind of, now, this lovely kid, Final Cut was like being a problem child. So XML allows you to play with other people, and shared area network allows you to play collaboratively in the editing process. External monitoring, which I absolutely depend on, was not supported. Please support this. Where's my list? You weren't able to open your previous programs in the new program. So it was like, imagine Word saying, no, we've redesigned word processing, you'll love this, but you can't open any of your old documents, which is another, what? kind of a thing. Because of one of the major redesigns was the lack of any tracks. You saw that slide I put up where I had 50 soundtracks. That I don't technically need 50. I could have condensed all of that to maybe 20 if I scrunched it. But by taking advantage of the fact that Final Cut has 99 tracks, I'm able to apportion the material in bands just to give myself a handle on what's happening here. Oh, yeah, this is dialogue, there's sound effects. And I can channel those to a little mixing board and selectively raise or lower the levels of those in real time. There was no way to do that in the new Final Cut. Everything just came out. You couldn't selectively choose what to do. Tape, no longer supported tape in and out, and on this film was tapeless, but the previous film was very, very definitely tape, so what would I do? Anyway, there has been a new version of Final Cut 10, which goes some distance to addressing some of these problems. It does have XML, it does have shared area network support, it does have external monitoring, it does have assignable tracks, not in the same way, not 50 tracks with divisions in between them, but a free-form thing where you can assign you can tell each clip what it is. You are dialogue, you are sound effects, and then hopefully the audio will go in the right direction. And anyway, the folks at Apple are certainly aware of the turmoil that has happened, and are saying they are dedicated to making Final Cut be making it true to its word that it really is a professional item. I think the key to maybe seeing what into the future, they don't talk other than saying, yes, we'll have multicam in January, but there's clearly been a big shift at Apple over the last 10 years, that Apple was on a kind of life support for a while, sustained in the early parts of this decade, the last years of the last century, by the professional market. And we professionals liked very much how the Macintosh worked, how it processed graphic information. And we made a lot of noise about it and bought a lot of this stuff. I mean, we, as the culture, but starting with the iPod and the iPhone and now the iPad, Apple has broadened out into a truly mass market creature. As I said, I was just in London just last week, and as a common experience, I'd be walking past two builders doing cement work or something, and they're taking a break, and they're sitting there, and they're looking at something, and I peered over the edge, and they were both on their iPhones. So, this stuff has deeply penetrated into the culture, and there is a wedge of a world opening up who are now getting access to the grammar of film, which has been part of our experience, those of us working professionally for as long as we've been doing it. But this is broadening out into the culture with unforeseen consequences. But it's important, and it's important to make this stuff easily accessible to people who are experiencing it for the first time. There's a decision at Apple to kill Express, which was kind of the mid-market, and make Final Cut Pro work at that level, and hopefully with XML and with working with third-party vendors to be able to use that as a foundation to rebuild a professional ecosystem, which, as the SuperMeets demonstrate, is a very viable and very active part of the whole experience. So I'm encouraged by the developments that have happened in the last month. In September, this new version was published. It's still some way to go. I haven't used it in any real-world situation. As I said, I just finished a film, and when you're on a film, you're kind of making the film is about as much as you can ever do. So I wasn't able to take some time out and really get my hands on it. That will be the proof of the pudding is in the eating of it. It doesn't matter what people say. It's like, how does it really feel when you start to deal with it? So I'm cautiously optimistic, but still a little traumatized by what happened over the summer, because it makes you start to wonder, what, do they love us? No. They like us, and they say they love us. But I mean, I'm a big fan, as you can tell, of FileMaker, and there are some things about FileMaker that, if we were trying to toss a football into the future and say, where is this really going? There are two things about FileMaker that I would love to see implemented in video editing software, whether it's Avid or Final Cut or Adobe. It doesn't really matter. But with FileMaker, you're given access to the layout layer, so you can peel back the skin and get your hands on the architecture underneath, and you can recombine that architecture however you want. You change the font of this, change the size of this window, make this thing do whatever you want. So you can customize your car, in a sense, much more deeply than the different views that are available to us in editing software. So something like that would be fantastic. Fundamentally, editing software is three things together. It's a database, a clock, and a graphics program. Of course, it's easy to say that, but those are the three pillars that any editing software is. So if it's a database, give us access to the layout layer, and you, meaning Apple or Adobe or Avid, will save yourselves a ton of headaches, because we won't have to keep phoning you or pounding on you. We can, if we're interested, we can do it ourselves.